Okay, so we will talk about this VPC endpoint, and before this VPC endpoint, we had covered the demo of NAT gateway, right? Where we saw that how can we connect our AC2 instance with S3 bucket, and that too using the NAT gateway, correct? So the simple use case to connect your EC2 instance to S3 is there are two ways. Either you can go through, like if your EC2 instance is in public subnet, that means your EC2 instance is itself it's public. It has public IP address, and your EC2 instance has direct connectivity with the internet gateway. That means your EC2 instance is part of some subnet. That might be your public subnet if it's a public EC2, correct? This public subnet has already the association with the internet gateway. We have already talked about how your subnet becomes public if it has association with the internet gateway. So if your EC2 is part of public subnet, you can directly attach one IAM role and you will be able to access this S3 bucket. If it is in a private subnet, you just need to create one NAT gateway in public subnet. This EC2 instance which is in private subnet, this private subnet route table will have the entry for the NAT gateway. NAT gateway is created in public subnet, so it will get the access in of the internet gateway, and that's how you can access S3 bucket. Although there will be permission assigned to this EC2 as well, or with the IAM role and policy. The third option is that you do not want to access the internet at anyhow, correct? You do not want to go through NAT gateway, you do not want to use any internet gateway. And anyway, your EC2 instance now is a private one. That means you have to establish the communication between the AWS EC2 instance, which is within the VPC, to S3 bucket, which is outside the VPC. So you have to establish the private communication between these two resources, the private EC2 and the S3. So you will be using this VPC endpoint. That's the one of the property of the VPC which lets you create the endpoint, and through that it will make sure that your server, the private server, can communicate with S3 bucket. And what is the use of VPC endpoint? The second factor other than this providing the private communication between the server and the bucket, the second point is you will save the cost as well. Here, when you are going through the NAT gateway, the internet gateway, you are paying the cost for NAT gateway and the internet gateway as well. VPC endpoint cost less. It saves your cost for all extra component for the internet gateway, for the NAT gateway. It saves the cost for these two factors and gives you the secured private communication between the resources only. That means within the cloud itself. So that's the use case of the VPC endpoint. And let's go for the demo. I think, do you want me to cover the demo as well for the VPC endpoint, or it's just like the NAT
Yes.
gateway? Okay. It's just like the
Actually,
by.
I have. Sorry,
Mhm.
Manish, to interrupt. What is VPC endpoint? I'm not getting
VPC endpoint is like the bigger block is C marked as a VPC, correct? Within this
it.
block VPC, we have two subnets, public subnet and private subnet. The subnet we are talking about logical separation of IP addresses. If your VPC has 1000 number of IP addresses, you have just divided your 1000 number of IP addresses into two parts, 500 for public subnet, 500 for private subnet. So
Hmm.
this all becomes your virtual private cloud where you can create your own resources. You can control through NSCL on the subnet level. You can control the rules inbound outbound on the at the EC2 level through security group. Correct? This
Hmm.
becomes your VPC. Now your EC2 instance has to connect to S3 here or DynamoDB or Lambda, any other services. These services are not the part of VPC. So
Hmm.
whenever your request will go from EC2 to outside the VPC, it has to go like it has to cross this particular boundary, VPC boundary, correct?
Hmm.
And in our use case, when we are talking about the VPC endpoint, it does not have to use this NAT gateway. It does not have to use the internet gateway. If it was using the NAT gateway and the internet gateway was giving the access to go outside with the
Hmm.
00, correct? And then
Hmm.
IGW has the connectivity to the internet. So from here you are allowed to go outside, but we do not have to use these two. So now VPC endpoint is a kind of a connection, or you can say wiring, which provides you the communication, like the interface you can say, or the boundary you can say, which makes ensures that whichever the services are outside the VPC but within the cloud only, correct? You
mm,
can make a communication to those services through this VPC endpoint.
mm,
Like it's just kind of gateway or gatekeeper you can say, which
mm,
allows the requests which are coming privately without net, without internet. And like, well, you will create this endpoint, it will ask you that for which route table I have to enable this communication. So
mm.
that way it works. So I think let's cover the demo. I think that will be yeah, better. So
Yeah.
where I'm here is sheet instance. Let me see if it's logged in already. Okay, it's not logged in. Just give me one second. Okay, so now we are within this AWS account. So what we have to do, we will have to launch our first EC2 instance, the private one, and then moving forward, we can go for establishing the communication between private to the S3. So let's do one thing. I think I do not have. So I will have to create the VPC. This process I will do at a bit faster pace without much
Mm,
explanation. I think you
mm,
are already aware about this, correct? So
mm.
let me call it demo VPC, then CIDR I will be passing 10.0.0/16. Let me create the VPC. Then we need to create this subnet. So I will create two subnet here. And this VPC, we have demo VPC. We are in the same region. Okay. Subnet I'm creating as a public one first so that we can SSH into our private one, correct? So it will be public subnet with the preference of episode 1A and CIDR for the second one, 10.0.1.0/24 IP address allocated. Let me create the second subnet, and that one we will call is a private subnet. And preference I'm just giving the same episode 1A to make it available. 10.0.2.0/24 IP address once again. Let's create the subnet, and after that we will require the route table to associate our subnet and to send the traffic as well. Right? So I will create one public route. I will select this VPC, create route table, and then let me create one more route table here. This one we will mark it as a private route. Select the VPC, demo VPC, create route table. In this private route, I'm going to associate my the private subnet, right? So I'll just associate my private subnet. Put it here. Private subnet associated. Then we have to go for the route tables, which is the public one. Here we will just associate our, sorry, the subnet association. We have to do edit subnet, then we have to select the public one, and public subnet is there. We will have to create internet gateway here as well. Why? Because we have to create one public EC2 instance. Then only you will be able to log in into your private one, correct? So for that we require the IGW. So demo IGW, create internet gateway, and then we need to associate this with our VPC as well. So attach to VPC, and which VPC? Demo VPC what we have created. So now our VPC has the internet access. So this need to be configured in public route table as well, so that EC2 instance what we will create in public one, that will be having the access of internet. So we will add to the 00, and 00 itself says that if none of the below rule has matched, your request will be routed to the component which is configured with the 00. So when we will request for the internet gateway, 10.00/16 will not match, correct? So that means none of the rule has matched which is below. So it will route your traffic to the internet gateway, and that's how it gets routed to internet. So infra-wise we are good. Now we have subnets, we have route tables, we have internet gateway, everything. Now let me get into this EC2, and I will create two EC2 instances in this particular VPC. So let me click on the launch. And this one I'm going to mark as public EC2. Same configuration, key pair I think last we used as a manish.pam, correct? So I will be selecting the same. Demo VPC, and the first one we need to mark as a public subnet. That's like we have already configured the IGW, so we have to use this public subnet, correct? Then auto assign public IP, yes, we are going to create the public ones, so it will be true. Existing security group, I think, okay, we will have to create one. So let me keep it at the name, what should keep it? Endpoint edge. Okay. SSH is there. We can do SSH. We can run our commands. Then let's go for creating this launch EC2 instance. Enable, yes. Let's click on the launch. Meanwhile, it's getting launched. I will be creating one more EC2 instance, that will be private one. Private EC2. Keep here. Once again, I will select the same one so that we can copy the same content. This one we already know. VPC, demo VPC. Subnet, I will be selecting the private subnet so that it does not have any access to the internet, and auto and public IP is going to be disabled, because we do not have to use any of the public IP address for our EC2 instance. So let's click on the launch instance. Now what we will do, let me click here, refresh. Let's connect this public EC2. And prime key, I think I should have. This. To see. Here we need to create that. So let me get into the sudo su, and then I will create one file, and the file name we are just going to keep it as key.pam. Shift insert, and then I need to paste it over here. So I'll just paste it and escape. This one we know, correct? How to do create the file, how to write within that file, and then saving the file and getting outside. WQ, that means write and quit. So we have this file here on our public server key.pem. So we will just give permission chmod 600 to our file key.pem, and then we will try to SSH into our server key.pem. Then issue2 hyphen user at the rate private IP address of our agent instance. For agent pending state. Okay, running. So you are logged into our your private server
Right.
10.02.249, correct?
Hmm.
So up to here, we already know, we have already covered. Now what we have to do, we have to connect our S3 bucket with this, with the help of this endpoint, correct? So let me do here, I'm not going to run the command. Once I will try to fetch. So I'll just create one S3 bucket now. Okay, it's already there. Sorry, I forgot. We have one S3 bucket in the same region, main demo 11.
Hmm.
So we have to run the command. So let me run the command here, AWS S3 ls. You should see the error first enable to locate credentials. So do you remember what I have to do for this? Okay. I need to attach the role to this particular server so that it will have the access to work with our S3 bucket, correct?
Oh, yes.
That
Yes.
that we need to configure.
Security groups. We need to configure security group rule.
A role actually, not the security group. Security group, the ports are allowed. The
Yeah.
inbound rule SSH is allowed. That's why we were able to log in into this server. SSH
Hmm.
rule was there, correct? We are not
Hmm.
able to find credentials. That means this particular server does not have access to get into AWS S3 service itself. So
Hmm.
we are going to attach the role what we have already created, demo role,
Hmm.
and this demo role has the permissions to connect with the S3. I have already seen you. If you don't remember, let me show you. We have this role, demo role, and demo role has the permissions to work with your S3. So let me search for that demo role. This is the role what we are going to attach with our S3, our AC2 instance, correct? If
Hmm.
you see, this has the policy. We will be talking about the IAM role and the policy, but I think before getting into that, okay, already we have covered this. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this particular role has the permission of S3 full access. That means it can perform S3 star. That means any kind of action on the bucket, and on what all buckets it can perform. That is also a star. A star means
Hmm.
everything here while defining your policy. So on any of the buckets which are available in this region, Episode 1 region or any other region, because S3 is a global service, you can perform actions on any of the bucket, and what all actions you can perform any kind of actions because it's a star after the column. Correct? That's how we define it. Keep here value. So the same role we are going to attach here with our EC2 instance. So the moment we will attach, you will not see that credential error. You should see some other error. Even you won't see any other actually. You will just see that this is not getting resulted into any error, and even though it's not able to list down any bucket. So what we will do, we will create the VPC endpoint here. So let's go and create endpoint service. Okay, it's the part of VPC. Within the VPC, we have this endpoint service. The and name of the endpoint, I'm just passing the name demo endpoint. It's just the networking configuration between the VPC and the resources which is outside the VPC, correct? So, which type of available load balancer? Sorry, it's endpoint service. Okay, endpoint we have to create. I selected the endpoint service. So we're just passing the name to this demo endpoint. Okay. Then AWS service, for which service we want to configure this. So I'll be selecting this
S3.
S3, yes, AP South 1 gateway. And here while creating the endpoint, you just pass the gateway. So basically we use the gateway endpoint to create our communication between this AWS S3 and EC2. For which VPC you have to configure the demo VPC where our EC2 instance is there. For which route table? So our private server needs to connect. So we will be selecting the private route table. Correct. Then let's click on the create endpoint. And let's go back to our route table. You see the one in route has been edited for your VPC endpoint, correct? VPC 0D. Now if I do AWS S3LS, it already worked. The moment we configured the role and the VPC endpoint, it worked. AWS S3LS, correct? If I create any other bucket over here, let me just create you for your use case. So bucket name, let's keep it unique. So what we can pass, let me do it when demo and 14, just making it as unique. Block all public access, I will just acknowledge. And yeah, we can go with the default configuration. We just have to list down the bucket. So one bucket has been created. Now if I do the AWS S3LS, you should see two bucket. We do have two bucket, correct? So this is how your VPC endpoint works. It establishes the communication between your private server and how when we were configuring this VPC endpoint, it asked for the VPC, correct? With which VPC you have to create this communication. So we selected our VPC. Then it asked for the route table. In which route table you have to pass this communication. So we selected our private route table because our EC2 instance is in a private subnet, and that private subnet has association with our private route table. So this is what we selected while creating the VPC endpoint, and we selected the service with which service we have to establish the communication. So for that we selected this s3amazon.aws.com, correct? So that's how we are able to send our traffic from private EC2 to AWS S3, which is outside the VPC. And it saves your cost, it saves your like the networking configuration of creating the NAT gateway, passing into the public subnet, then configuring the internet gateway, keeping the maintenance of your route table, like where you will configure your route table. VPC, and while creating the VPC endpoint, it asks for the route table, and itself it made the entry into your route table. And also the important factor is that it's a private communication, which is only offered by this AWS itself. So that's how you are able to create or to connect your EC2 with the S3. So I hope it's clear till now.
Yes, sir. So one, before connecting to the VPC gateway, if we try to access the S3 bucket, what error we are getting?
Unable to locate credentials. That means you do not have permissions to get into this S3 service.
So for that we provide the IAM role, right?
Yes, we provided the IAM role. Through IAM role, it got the, like when you are creating this IAM role, where it is. So your EC2 Amazon AWS.com, how this trust relationship work. In this trust relationship, what we have told. This is the role. This role has permission to get into the S3. That means the person, the user or the group which is having this particular role, they can perform this S3 related operations, correct? They can get into S3, they can perform either creation of the bucket or deletion of the bucket, listing the bucket, correct? or if you need to upload any file in the bucket, generally we call it as object in S3, correct? S3 bucket object.
Hmm.
So all these actions can be performed, but who can perform all these actions? That we pass in the trust relationship. Here we have just passed
Hmm.
EC2 Amazon AWS.com and Lambda Amazon AWS.com. So
Hmm.
this role can be assumed by the EC2 service, AWS EC2 service, any of the EC2, correct?
Hmm.
But we are talking about the service itself here. So this role can be assumed by, that means this the whatever the permissions are attached with this role, all this permission will work for the EC2 and Lambda only. If you want to attach this role to any other service like RDS, correct? RDS cannot perform the same operation over the S3 because we have not passed that rds.amazonaws.com here. So RDS cannot be trusted for this role. It's a trust relationship, correct? So the services which are available here, the EC2, Lambda, they can be trusted to work on this on the behalf of this role. This role has the permission to work with the S3, correct? With the different actions. Like here in this particular case, a star. That means you can do anything, create, delete, put anything. So those services which are here, they can perform the actions on the behalf of this role, and they can work over that particular service. So
No, sir. My question is, after you assign this IM role, we can still see the means S3 list without connecting to this
no, we were not able
VPC
to.
and
Let me
okay, that
remove
was
this.
what I'm asking. What was the error? I just missed out.
You were saying that we were able to list down the bucket even without creating this VPC endpoint, just after adding the
Yeah, I'm
IAM.
just checking what was the error because I just missed out that
Yeah,
part.
there was no error actually. So there was no error actually. The moment you attach IAM role to your server, you will see
Hmm.
that it will not result into this particular error, that it does not have access. The error will be that it's trying to communicate with your S3, but the network is not reaching over there. So it will just like, it's a kind of loop. It will try, and it will run for some time. It will not result into error. It's like, it's kind of for loop, you can say, where it is trying again and again to connect with
Hmm.
your S3 because it has now permission. It just needs the connectivity. So that
Hmm.
connectivity is not getting resulted. So it will again and again try only. It will not result into any error. So the moment we had not created any, like we had not configured this endpoint, if I just
Hmm.
remove this route for you, okay, I will have to delete actually endpoint directly.
Hmm.
So do you want me to reverse this demo, or is it okay? Like,
No, I will test it. If I get any error apart
yeah,
from me, what you're saying, I'll surely ask. So one more important question is, I was trying to do some practical on this VPC thing,
uh,
and somehow I just deleted means because of some update happened on my system, I lost my .pm file. So
uh,
how can I recover that PM file? Because without that PM file, I'm not able to connect with the resources which I created, right?
you can create new one, na? Create new one,
So
a
if
new.
I create a new PAM file, then how I can attach that PAM file into the EC2?
You can create new issue to